What is up, everyone? Welcome back to our channel. Today we have another episode talking about websites and the different website platforms out there because there are a ton. We always get a lot of questions about which one is best, which one people should choose. And there are some that are better for you or worse for you, depending on who you are, what you do, what you sell. So we're going to go through some of the more popular ones. There are some that we're not going to cover today, but these are the ones that are the most popular or we are going to suggest that you look at. So starting first and foremost, we're going to say Showit. Showit is our favorite, and it's the one that we work in the most because it's really great if you are a photographer, if you are a wedding pro, if you are a creative, someone who might not necessarily be selling products. You can do that. We'll get to that in a minute. But if you're selling services, are a service-based provider, this is a great platform for you. Our number one reason why we love Showit so much is it is so user-friendly. It is super simple to pick up. There's no really code you need to do most things. You can add some cool effects and some cool elements to the site with code, but you don't need to have code. You can make it look really good on its own. It's basically drag and drop. So if you've ever designed in something like Canva, it's the same concept. You want a text box here, you drag a text box there. You want to make it bigger, you make it bigger. It doesn't kind of put you in confines and little boxes like some of the other platforms we'll talk about. And you also use WordPress for blogging. So we are huge on blogging. Blogging is super important, and WordPress is one of the best sites to blog on. So with Showit, you actually get a WordPress blog on the back end. So your blog visuals look really nice. They match the website because it's all designed on Showit, but then you actually blog through WordPress. So it makes it really easy. SEO is great, and you can put out some great blog posts. Now, when it comes to products on Showit, you can do products on Showit. However, we would not suggest having a Showit site if you are a product-based business. If you are a creative or a photographer or an entrepreneur that has a couple of products, Showit's totally fine. The downside to Showit for a product-based business is every single product has to have its own page. So yes, you can make a page, duplicate it, swap out the copy and the images for each product, but then you're doing that over and over and over and over again. And if you have 30, 40 products, that can get really tedious. But if you just have a few, there's a couple different ways you can do products. One is going to be through Shopify Lite. So Shopify Lite lets you get buy buttons. So you can actually have everything on Shopify, have all your products there, just make a button and then embed that button on your site. We actually used to use Shopify Lite. We've done it on client sites before. It's really easy to set up and to maintain. So it's a great option if you have, we generally say under 10 products is okay to have on Showit. If you have a blog, you can also do, I believe you need the advanced blog plan, but WooCommerce is also through WordPress. So if you have your blog on Showit, you can set up a WooCommerce kind of e-commerce site with that. Or there's a couple other options that you can do. One of the other ones that we currently do right now is through Thrivecart. So Thrivecart is where we host all of our courses, all of our templates for our template shop, all of the products that we have, the different masterclasses, everything like that. So we have them all on Thrivecart. And again, just like Shopify Lite, basically grab a link for this one instead of an actual buy button. We grab a link to the checkout page in Thrivecart, and we just link our buttons to that checkout page. So it's super easy. It is a little separate. Everything for the product itself is in Thrivecart. We put the quantity there if there is, which for us there isn't since it's not a physical one, but we can add them to the membership site. We have all of that set up, all the tutorials, the courses, anything that it is all set up in Thrivecart. And then we just link it to the page. So if you do have courses instead of like actual products or anything like that, Thrivecart can be a great option for that. The next really popular one that we see a lot is going to be Squarespace. And Squarespace is good for basically the same types of people. You can do products on Squarespace, and we have had product-based businesses on Squarespace before, and it's a little easier to do than on Showit, but it's still not ideal if your main business is selling products. So Squarespace, again, they're new 7.1, which isn't super new now. It's been out for a little bit, but 7.1 definitely gives you a lot more flexibility than 7.0 did. They have kind of flex blocks that allow you to move things around, size things differently, and create a lot of things. There's not a lot of things you can't do on Squarespace. Just like Showit, you can basically do anything you want on Showit. Squarespace is pretty much up there. However, the one downside to Squarespace is we've noticed that to make it look like, say, a Showit site that we've designed, it does require some code. So if you're not familiar with code, if you're not comfortable doing code, if you don't want to try and figure it out, then this might not be the best fit for you. But if you're open to learning it, there are thousands of Squarespace tutorial videos that go over basically everything you could need to know about making the code work for your site, editing anything on your site. I do it consistently. If there's something I don't know how to do, I'll Google it. 9 times out of 10, there's a YouTube video. If not, there's a blog post that gives you the direct code that you can copy and paste into your custom CSS to make the edits. So it's not impossible, and it's really easy to pick up as long as you have the time to actually do it. But the biggest downside is that there's certain things that are really easy on Showit to edit, and it requires code on Squarespace. For example, if you want to change the text size of something, they have the different headings and paragraphs that you can do that have their own sizes. But say you want one H2 a little bigger, instead of just kind of pushing the arrow up a couple times like you do on Showit, you actually have to go in and code it to make it bigger. So it can be a bit more tedious and take a little bit more time to set up. Even things like overlapping canvases, stuff like that will take code to do. Or on Showit, you can just do it. You just drag the image up, you drag the text up, whatever it is you want to overlap. So that is one of the downsides to it. The other downside that we see is that everything has to fit within their grid in the boxes. So instead of just making something as big or as small as you want it, like you can on Showit, it has to fit in their little boxes. And sometimes it's just like too big, or it's hard to get text aligned perfectly with certain elements. So it can take a little playing around, and sometimes it can be a little frustrating. It takes a little more time, but it's still a really good option. You can have a blog, you can have products on there. So it is a great option if you are looking for something like that. You're not afraid to maybe learn some code, or okay with just doing their basic blocks. They do have a ton of pre-made blocks. So when you go to add a section, you can add a blank section and then add elements in there. Or you can pick one of their pre-made blocks, which makes it really easy to just kind of pop in your content and go from there. The next one we're going to talk about is actually for if you're a product-based business. So if you are a product-based business, our number one recommendation is going to be Shopify. If you do not sell products, there is no reason you need to be on Shopify, and there's no reason you need to try to figure out Shopify. But if you have over 10 products, or if your main business is selling products, we would definitely recommend Shopify. Shopify can take a little bit of time to set up and get the hang of. And the kind of biggest downside that we see with Shopify is unless you hire someone to do a completely custom coded Shopify site, you have to work off of one of their templates that you can purchase online, which there are a ton. You can get a lot of flexibility. A lot of them have different options. A lot of them range in prices depending on the template. Our favorite one, which is one of the ones that's a little more expensive, but it's because it has a lot of flexibility in it, is the Flex theme. This one has, 7 or 8 different kind of layouts and options that you can choose from. So even when you choose one, you have the blocks from the other ones. It is like Squarespace, where you can pick the different blocks that are kind of pre-made and then just put your content in. And again, sometimes it does take custom code. So the biggest difference between Squarespace and Shopify is Squarespace, the code will be the same for every different Squarespace site that you have. So if you make a new one in the future, you can use the same types of code. For Shopify, the code is dependent on the theme that you have. So you could have one theme, set it up, have all the code figured out, get it down, which sometimes takes a little bit of time. But again, like Squarespace, there are a million tutorials out there on how to do the code for Shopify. But if in the future you change to a different theme, you then have to make sure that you pick up the certain way that things are tagged in that theme to then code it. So it can take a little bit of time to figure that out. But once you do, there is a lot that you can do with Shopify. Obviously, if you're a product-based business, this is the best one because unlike Showit, you make one product page and all of your products just get put into that template basically of what you have. So instead of having to make individual pages, you'll make the one page and then upload all of your products to Shopify so it knows what it is, the description, price, shipping, all of the information that you want to have on it, any tags you want, images, and then you create the page how you want it to look, and all of your products will automatically be assigned to that template is what they call it. So that makes it really, really easy when you have a lot of products, and is why we don't suggest Showit if you have a lot of products because it will become a really big headache. But Shopify is great for all the products. It also has a lot of apps that you can purchase and kind of add on to your site depending on what you might need. Some of these are free, some of them are paid, but they will give you a little more flexibility in what you can do on your site. Just for an example, one of the ones that I have added to a client site that I developed was a infinite options app is what it's called. And basically it lets you go through and ask different questions, let people select different things on the actual product, on specific products. So for this one, they wanted to have them answer a couple of questions for the product before they actually place the order, so that when the order was placed, they already had the answers. They didn't have to go back and forth to get them. So there are apps like that. There's donations apps if you want people to be able to donate. There's different apps that give you more flexibility in what you can actually do. There's apps that let you add your Instagram feed to the page. So there's a ton of different apps that you can add on. Some of them will work on some themes, some of them won't work on some themes. So normally the App Store itself will tell you if it's compatible with what you're using. But you do have a little bit of flexibility there. If you can't get something set on your site by itself, there might be an app that can help you do it. I will say, if you are planning on doing a Shopify site, do not plan on having it up, within a couple of days. It will take you a little more time to get set up than something on, say, Showit or even Squarespace. Squarespace generally will take longer than Showit. Showit is usually the fastest one to set up just because you're not having to worry about code things or fit things or kind of rearrange your design based on what you can actually do. But Shopify will take a little longer to set up. So make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time. You're not rushing things. You give yourself time to actually set up the site, but then also set up the products, set up the shipping, set up all of that stuff that goes along with selling those products. All right, now that we have gotten through all the website platforms that start with S, let's go through all the website platforms that start with W. So we're going to start with WordPress first. WordPress is super popular. It is, in our opinion, the best for SEO when it comes to blogging and everything like that, which is why we love that Showit and WordPress connect for blogging so that you get all that power. And there's a couple different ways that you can actually work on WordPress. So WordPress has its own kind of inherent blocks that you can design with, or you can use page builders like Kadence or Elementor, things like that. So with those, it is going to be kind of the in-between of Squarespace and Showit. So you don't necessarily have to use code, but it does take a little more time to tweak things than it does on Showit. A lot of the builders do have some sort of drag and drop features, but it's not necessarily as flexible as you would see on Showit. Sometimes you have to play around with the margins or the padding or anything like that, but you don't necessarily have to code it like you would on Squarespace. So it's kind of the in-between. There are also a ton of different themes and templates that you can purchase to kind of help you get started on WordPress. And depending on what you're looking for, you can pick Kadence, you can pick Elementor, you can just do the regular WordPress blocks. Kadence will be a little bit lighter, so that means that your site might run a bit faster than if you choose Elementor, but Elementor isn't necessarily bad either. You're still going to have a good site. It'll still look good and it'll still run relatively quick. So depending on what you're looking for, you can pick between those. You can also do it based on if you're hiring a designer, what they design in, what they specialize in. With products, you can also use WordPress. Again, like I mentioned WooCommerce earlier, you can use WooCommerce directly with WordPress to have products on your site. So that's an option if you are looking for that as well. And then blogging, obviously you'll have the blog with WordPress, which is great. Blogging will bring in a lot of traffic. So if you are photographers, if you are creatives, if you are kind of anyone falling into those buckets, WordPress is still a great option. But again, sometimes it can be a little trickier to handle and deal with than Showit. The great thing about WordPress, say if you're using Elementor, there are also a ton of plugins that will let you add things to your site, do new things, kind of make the design a little bit more dynamic, which can be really nice. Some of these are free, some of them are paid. So again, keep that in mind when it comes to WordPress or Shopify. You might have to pay for some of these plugins. And you want to make sure that you try and keep your plugins to a minimum. The more plugins you have, the heavier your site is, and it can slow it down a bit. So if you can avoid putting 30, 40 plugins on your site, that's great. If you have a couple, perfect. That shouldn't affect it that much. You also have Wix, which is a really popular one for people just starting out because it's one that does a lot of advertising. So you've probably seen commercials, ads, anything talking about Wix and creating a website on Wix and how it's easy and everything like that. So this is one that kind of might be your starting point. If you're just starting out, you might just be like, well, I'm just going to do Wix because I recognize it. And you can create good sites on Wix. However, it doesn't necessarily have as much flexibility or design capabilities as some of the other options on this list. So if you are just starting out, or if you want a more creative site, a more intriguing site, kind of a more dynamic site, Wix might not be the best option for you. You might want to think about either picking another website platform or moving to another website platform. If you do just need a very simple website that doesn't have a bunch of bells and whistles and it's just straight to the point, and you're not worried about maybe the whole design of it or anything like that, Wix might be an okay option for you. You can also blog through Wix, and we have had clients in the past who we have done a monthly blogging service for. They were on Wix, and we were able to still get them blog posts that rank on Wix. So it's not totally out of the question to have good SEO on Wix either. But generally, it's not one that we would necessarily suggest for most people, just because you are going to be limited a little bit in what you can do and how things are going to look compared to some of the other options that might work a bit better for you. And then finally, we have Webflow. So this is one of the newer platforms that has come out. I think it started to get popular around 2020, 2021. And this one is one that you can really do a ton of things. So it's a very interesting platform, and you can make some really cool things. You can make animations, a lot of dynamic movement, everything like that. However, this is one that will definitely take you time to pick up. It is not going to be as intuitive as something like Showit or even Squarespace. It does require some math to get things set up. So if you want to do this, this is one that might be a bit more of a challenge to do on your own. But if you have a lot of time on your hands that you can devote to doing this website, and you want to create something that looks very different from everything else and feels different and kind of stands out, Webflow might be a great option. I will say in general, it's probably going to have a little less information online than you'll see with Showit, Squarespace, Shopify, WordPress, all of those platforms, just because it is newer. So not necessarily a totally bad thing, but with these other platforms being around for a while, there's a lot of information on them, help docs on them, people making tutorials on them. Whereas Webflow, it is still a little newer, and it's not necessarily the most popular design platform yet. So you won't see as many designers or developers making videos about putting sites on Webflow and creating things, issues that you might run into, things that you would want to do. So just something to keep in mind as you're doing it. If you're fine just picking things up on your own and learning it and kind of working through it, then this is a really cool one. We've played around with it a little bit, and it's really interesting. It's fun to be in there and design in there, and you can do some really fun and creative things, but it is definitely going to take a lot of time to get that site set up. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for something that's a little easier to set up or a little easier to maintain, you might want to go towards something like Showit or Squarespace or WordPress, but it is a really cool option out there that might be gaining popularity in the coming years, and it might be a little easier to kind of find information on it, find designers who work in it over the next few years. But that is all of the platforms that we have for you today. Like I said, this is not all of them. There are so many different platforms that you can go on. These are the ones that we would suggest that you go on, or ones that you may have heard of. But if you are on something else, that's totally fine. If it works for you, great. If you're looking for something different and you are kind of in the creative space, photographers, wedding pros, entrepreneurs that are just offering services, things like Showit, Squarespace, WordPress are going to be great for you and give you a lot of options. We obviously love Showit, and that's going to be our top pick, and it's going to be the easiest for you to pick up and kind of maintain over the years. But if you are a product-based business and you have more than, we'll say, 10 or so products, absolutely look at Shopify. That's probably going to be your best bet. It's going to be the easiest for you to maintain the actual product side of your business, which at the end of the day is the main goal. So there you have it. If you have any questions on this, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll catch you in the next video.